the heart of this nation, under skies so blue,
there's a spirit that's stirring, values strong and true.
from the mountains to the prairies, from the cities to the sea, we stand for liberty, for faith and family. We're diving deep into the heart of what we believe.
Welcome to the Deep Dive.
Good to be here.
So we're jumping straight into something pretty interesting out of the Senate today.
The tariff vote.
Exactly. President Trump's reciprocal tariffs announced earlier. Well, there was a vote to scrap them.
And it didn't quite go as planned for the opponents, right?
At all. It ended in a tie, 49-49. And this really puts a spotlight on some, let's say, internal debates within the Republican Party about trade.
Definitely. And maybe about the president's power versus Congress, too.
For sure. So we've got a townhall.com article that covered the vote, plus some reaction floating around online.
Okay.
Our mission basically is to figure out who's who in this, what are the main arguments flying around, and, what does this failed vote actually mean going forward?
Sounds good. Let's get into it.
Okay, so President Trump announces these tariffs back in April. Some people were even calling it Liberation Day.
Yeah, that framing definitely signals a big shift, or at least an intended big shift in trade policy.
And then, boom, the Senate comes back pretty quick with a resolution to just get rid of them.
Right. That speed itself tells you something, doesn't it? Sets up this potential clash between the White House and the Hill on who really controls trade.
Totally. And that clash, well, showed up right there in the vote numbers, 49-49, a dead tie.
Which on the surface sounds like nothing happened, but the details are where it gets interesting.
Exactly. So how did that vote actually break down?
Well, every Democrat who was there voted for the resolution.
Yeah.
To block the tariffs. Pretty much expected. Aligns with their general stance.
Okay, standard enough.
But the Republicans? That's the real story. You had 3 GOP senators voting with the Democrats.
Who were they?
Susan Collins from Maine, Lisa Murkowski from Alaska, and Rand Paul from Kentucky.
Those are significant names. That signals some real disagreement within the party, doesn't it?
Absolutely. It's not just procedural opposition.
Yeah.
It suggests a genuine policy split on tariffs within the GOP.
And then there were the absences, which turned out to be, well, pretty critical.
Yeah, this is where it gets really tight. Senate Minority Leader McConnell, he was out sick.
And his office, didn't they put out a statement fairly recently against tariffs?
They did. His spokesperson, David Pop, basically said, a trade war isn't good for anyone. Tariffs are a tax increase. Standard sort of traditional Republican view on trade, really.
So if he had been there and voted based on that statement,
the resolution might very well have passed 50-49 the other way. His absence was huge.
And on the Dem side?
Senator Whitehouse was also out. He was traveling, I think, from South Korea.
Okay, so one absence on each side kind of canceling out.
In a way, yes, but given McConnell's likely yes vote, based on his camp statements, his absence arguably had a bigger impact on the outcome of this specific resolution. It just shows how tight these margins are.
No kidding. One senator here or there totally changes the game.
Exactly.
But wait, the 49-49 tie wasn't the absolute end of it, was it? There was another vote.
That's right. After the initial tie, there was a move to basically block any future vote on this same resolution, keep it from coming back up.
And how did that go?
That's where the Vice President JD Vance came in. He cast the tie-breaking vote.
The VP breaks ties in the Senate.
Correct. So his vote made it 50-49 against allowing a future vote.
So essentially slamming the door shut on this particular attempt to block the tariffs via the Senate, at least for now.
Precisely. It's a procedural move, but a powerful one. It shows the administration using the tools it has to protect its policy, even with Senate opposition.
Okay, let's unpack the arguments. Why are people like Senator Paul so against these tariffs?
Well, Senator Paul's argument is fundamentally constitutional. He's been very vocal about this.
Right.
He argues that a tariff is a tax. And his reading of the Constitution is that all taxes, all new taxes, have to start in the House of Representatives.
Not just be declared by the president.
Exactly. He sees it as an overreach of executive power into Congress's constitutional territory, the power of the purse, essentially.
Yeah. And that view lines up with what McConnell's office said, too, calling tariffs a tax increase.
It does. It taps into that broader concern about executive authority versus legislative authority, especially on big economic policies. It's a classic separation of powers debate, really.
So that's the against camp. What about the Republicans who are okay with letting these tariffs proceed, or at least not blocking them?
Well, you have figures like Senate Majority Leader John Thune kind of downplaying the whole thing.
How so?
His take, according to the article, was basically, hey, let's give the administration some space.
Space to do what?
Space to negotiate, to see if they can leverage these tariffs into, good deals, particularly with China.
So the tariffs aren't the end goal, they're a tactic, a bargaining chip.
That seems to be the thinking for many supporting the administration's move, yes. It's about creating pressure. There were even reports, I think, that Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent noted the tariffs were becoming unsustainable for China.
Implying that the pressure might be working, or at least that's the hope.
Right. The hope is that this economic pain forces concessions at the negotiating table. It's a high-stakes strategy, obviously.
Okay, so turning to the political side, the town hall article framed this as another win for Trump.
Yeah, and look, the resolution did fail, and the tariffs remain in place for now, so from that perspective, it's accurate. The administration avoided a direct rebuke from the Senate.
But it also mentions some unhappiness among Democrats.
A little bit, yeah. Some reports of griping, as the article put it. Apparently, some Democrats felt maybe Leader Schumer shouldn't have let the vote happen, especially knowing about Senator Whitehouse's absence.
Why? Because they might have had a shot if everyone was there.
Potentially. Given the 3 Republican yes votes, if Whitehouse had been there and McConnell had been absent, well, the math gets interesting. It raises questions about vote counting and strategy on the Democratic side. Maybe a missed opportunity? Hard to say for sure.
And what about those 3 Republicans who voted yes? Collins, Murkowski, Paul. Any fallout for them?
Well, the article specifically mentions Senator Murkowski's vote is apparently getting a lot of attention on X, Twitter.
Oh, really?
Yeah, talk of potential primary challenges brewing.
Even in Alaska, don't they have that ranked choice voting thing?
They do, and ranked choice can sometimes help incumbents who cross party lines, make them a bit safer from purely partisan challenges. Plus, Alaska votes were pretty reliably Republican in presidential races.
But still,
yeah. The fact that there's talk of a primary challenge over this vote, even with those factors, tells you how sensitive this trade issue is within the Republican base right now.
it really shows the tension, doesn't it, between maybe the more traditional free trade wing and the president's more protectionist or transactional approach.
Absolutely. Trade has become a major fault line. This vote wasn't just about procedure. It was about a fundamental disagreement on economic philosophy and strategy within the GOP. Opposing the president on this clearly carries political risk for Republican senators.
Okay, so let's try and wrap this up. The Senate tried to block President Trump's tariffs. The vote tied. And then a procedural move prevented another vote for now.
Right. And that whole process really laid bare some key things.
Like the split in the Republican Party on trade.
Yeah, and the ongoing debate about presidential power versus congressional power on the economy, especially taxes and tariffs.
We saw the constitutional arguments, the strategic arguments about negotiation.
And the political risks for senators who buck the party line on issues important to the administration.
It really highlights how complex trade policy has become, intertwining constitutional questions, economic strategy, and raw politics.
For sure. This wasn't just a simple up or down vote. It revealed a lot about the current dynamics in Washington.
So that leads us to the final thought for you, the listener, to chew on. What happens next? With the Senate resolution effectively sidelined, does this give the Trump administration a clearer path to keep these tariffs in place, maybe even expand them, without much congressional interference?
Or will opponents find other ways to push back?
And thinking bigger picture, what does this episode tell us about the future of trade talks, especially with major partners like China? Are tariffs now just a standard part of the U.S. toolkit?
Lots to think about there. Definitely something to watch.
Absolutely. Thanks for taking this deep dive with us.
In the heart of this nation, under skies so blue, there's a spirit that's stirring, values strong and true. From the mountains to the prairies, from the cities to the sea, we stand for liberty, for faith and family. We're diving deep into the heart of what we believe. Conservative values in our souls, they're interweaved. With courage and with honor, we'll hold to bear arms, to speak, and to agree. We honor our forefathers who fought with steadfast might for the dream of a nation shining bright in the night.